right, we are going to get started. So, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Okay.
Welcome. This is the first session to Shortcut to Success. But I would like everybody to quickly introduce yourself and give a little statement of why you're here. What's the most important reason for why you're going on this little trip with us? So we're going to start here in front.
My name is Lisa Knight, and I'm here because I want to have a more vibrant kind of life, and I feel very energized, and I thought this would be a good thing to do, to sort of be with other people who are maybe feeling the same way and on a similar path, and yeah, I just want to have myself shine more than I have. Have
A
fun.
good way to start the year, right?
Yes.
Stefania Ripley. I just, I'm open to ideas and suggestions, and hopefully it works. Bob tells me all about it, so.
My name's Mike White. I had hoped to be more focused. I would hope to have better answers like you two did, but that's about what I know. My focus isn't what it should be. I hope to improve it.
Excellent.
I'm Gayla Pratt, and my reasons for being here, I guess I'm just on this journey to find myself and make myself better, and this is where I'm led, so I'm here.
Very good. Very good.
My name's Raylan. I'm on the same thing. It's really just to find out where I'm supposed to be.
Well, the interesting thing, I spent many years looking for my purpose, and what you really find out is your purpose is what you say it is. And this is what this is all about. It's taking charge of yourself and determining where you want your own life to go. So,
My name is Charity McKee, and I am in need of healing for past events that have happened in my life so that I can turn things around and have a more vibrant life.
I'm Joyce Kellogg, and I work for Bob. But that's not why I'm here. No, I decided 2016 was for me. So, it's for me.
we really appreciate Joyce.
Thank
She's a huge part of why we're successful.
I'm Lisa Kingsley, and I need to think better.
Okay. Lisa
More
is
positively. Let's do
Lisa's
that
from
one.
Peasley's Posies here in town. And she has a few interesting challenges in her life.
I'm Casey Burkey, and I'm here because my friends told me about this class. And I've got a lot of irons in the fire with jobs and things of what I'm supposed to be doing. So.
Excellent.
I'm Rainy Sunade, and I think that I think my life is chaotic, and I'm very unorganized, and I need to focus on things, and I don't know how to start.
Good. Raimi owns the Peddler's Patch, which is also here in town. All right, let's move on here. So, let's just have you think about your own life. What is your life like today? Some of you mentioned that it's chaotic or not so focused. Are you living a full and happy life? Many people have parts of their life that are working well, but other parts might not be working so well. So, what would your life be like if all of these parts, let's take a look at all of those pieces. Relationships, family, is that working well? How about your career, your business, your job, recreation? A lot of people are very successful at their work, maybe in their families, but they never take any time off. Anybody here that does that? No vacations, no time off? Hey, you take plenty of She's going for a full-time time off. But that's a big part of the balance. And do you have enough money? A lot of people have decided they can put up with what they have, but maybe they'd like to have more. And what about your health? This is a real important part of all of this. It has to be balanced. Now, what would your life look like if all of those things were percolating the way they should be? Just a little bit about my journey. I started my life in Montana, a very religious family. Whenever we wanted something, we were quite poor, and whenever we wanted something, the standard answer was pray about it. And that never really seemed to work well for me. Now, for some people, it works great. And in my travels, I've begun to understand why that didn't work well for me as a child. But it also helped me become a goal setter, because when you're praying for something, you've got to have some clarity of what you want. After being married, starting a family, I went to physician assistant school, and that became my career. It'll be 40 years this year that I've been a physician assistant, and it's been a very good career, very helpful. Somewhere along the line, I think I was about almost 30, somebody gave me a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Now, Napoleon Hill had written a book called The Laws of Success. He'd spent 25 years researching 500 of the most successful people in the U.S. and 2,500 people who are not successful. And his terms of success were mostly business and career and money-oriented things. Well, nobody read this book because it was 2,500 pages, and it was just too big for most people. And so he abridged it down to this little paperback called Think and Grow Rich. And if you haven't read this, this is a very good book to read. It's a little bit dated now because it was written in the 30s, but still a very good book. In the early 80s, I was introduced to something called the Silva Method. Mike is also a graduate of the Silva Method. This was created by Jose Silva. He was a Mexican-American, lived in Laredo, Texas. And very interesting story. He had 10 children. 7 of his kids were doing very well in school, but 3 of them were having problems. They couldn't focus, they couldn't take tests. And he was a radio and television repairman, and he was a problem solver. So people would bring their stuff to him, and he would try to figure it out. So he looked at these kids, the teachers were complaining. He went to school, and he observed that instead of being calm and relaxed during taking tests, they got excited and nervous, and they couldn't remember anything. But they were just as smart as his other kids. So he used some techniques, kind of a combination of hypnosis and some relaxation techniques. And soon, these other 3 kids were doing very well in school also. And pretty soon the neighbors and relatives started asking him, well, will you teach my kids? And it wasn't too long, and this developed into a program, and then over the years he expanded that to a 4-day training class. And when I took it in the mid-'80s, it literally changed my life. I had high blood pressure, I had an ulcer, I had a job that was very stressful, and I thought it was normal to have chest pain at the end of the day until I took this training and realized that, you know, when you did your relaxation and you did a little meditation, all of that pressure would go away. And it wasn't long and that ulcer was healed and blood pressure was normal, and it was a pretty amazing tool. I enjoyed that so much I became an instructor for that and taught that class for 8 years, and that was very rewarding. But that really started a long life path, a lifelong path of self-discovery and trying to put these things together. Now, we operate on one of 3 paradigms. A paradigm is a series of thoughts. It's how we look at the world. It's a model of thinking. One of these is the law of karma. Karma says you're going to get what you sow. Now, the second one is the law of grace, and this is more of let go and let God. It's a philosophy taught by Alcoholics Anonymous, and for many people this is very, very effective. And the third one is called the law of co-creation. And this is what we're going to talk about tonight. It is how you use the power of the universe in your own mind, and you put the two together to create what you desire. I had a patient a few years ago, and she was in for physical, and she said, I have this magical life. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, I love my work, I have great relationships, I'm healthy all the time. Every goal I've ever set, I've achieved that. And I sat there for a minute, and then we had about an hour discussion of how she did this and what she was doing. And it really was kind of the first time that I decided I needed to try to put some of this into a program, which eventually turned out to become this book. But most of us don't think we can have it all, right? How many of you think I can have it all? Most of us don't. But you're going to learn that you really can, and why we have that thinking. So, I began to think about this. How can I create an amazing life for myself, similar to what she had? Well, what's interesting about this is we live in two worlds. We live in the physical world of our body. This is the concrete, visible, objective world. And the conscious mind is in control of that. It is, we gather information through our 5 physical senses. We also live in this spiritual world of our mind. And this world is subjective, it's flexible, it's invisible. And the subconscious mind rules that. And this is the world of dreams, imagination, the inner voice that we sometimes hear, and gut feelings. And it's important to understand that these are two separate facets of our lives. So, conscious mind and the subconscious work together. The conscious is the physical part, and that's what we use to experience our lives, our 5 physical senses. But that subconscious or spiritual part is actually what creates that. And we become what we think about most of the time. Earl Nightingale was an insurance man, and he had a large workforce of insurance salesmen. And he created this program called The Greatest Secret. And the greatest secret was we become what we think about. And how we put that together with our actions is what you're going to learn in this program. Now, our thinking is filtered. Now, what that means is we have programs that are built into our system, and some of those programs come from our growing up period in our life. So the things that our parents taught us, what we learned in school, what we learned in church, what we learned from the doctor that we visited, what we learned from other important people in our lives. Some of us had an uncle or a grandparent. And these filters are programs, statements. Some of you, I'm sure, have experienced where you heard yourself say something that your grandfather said or that your parents said. And sometimes the exact tone of voice that they use. Well, that's information that's come through that filter. Now, there's a spiritual filter or a religious filter, which are kind of two different things. But this is your past experience of how you view that part of the world, the spiritual or religious world. There are gender filters. It's what you think about the male and female, what your thoughts are as a male or a female. Typically, most of us come from patriarchal families, but it's beginning to kind of shift where there's much more influence now of feminine. And then there's a logic filter. What we think has to make sense in some way. And finally, professional filter. What your profession taught you, what I learned in traditional medicine, I had to unlearn in some of my experience of alternative medicine.
Is that kind of like the logic too? I think that's what gets in my way. It has to be logical. These things
they often overlap, so they're not specific to each one, but they often overlap. And logic may come from your growing up. Maybe you had a parent that was very logical. But some people had parents who, were illogical and nothing really mattered, and so you didn't have that kind of a logic filter. So all of these things really come together. We just try to organize them this way. Now, we all have within us what we call mind viruses. These are programs that have been installed by somebody or something that we heard through our early years. And so when we look at a project, sometimes we'll just say, it's too difficult. Barb and I are remodeling our upstairs. We live in the back half right now, and the front 2/3 we're still working on. And I was looking at some pictures from 2008 when we were kind of beginning the work up there, and I was just shaking my head. What was I thinking? But at the time, it didn't seem too difficult. I mean, we've been working on it for 8 years. People think we're nuts, but it was a huge project. But I never thought of it as difficult because it was little pieces. It's going to be risky is a mind virus that many of us carry. It will take too long. There will be family drama. Anybody have that? You got to worry about what your parents think or what your brothers or sisters are going to say.
My kids.
Your kids. I do not deserve it. Many of us have this as a mind virus. We have self-esteem issues, so we don't deserve to be healthy. We don't deserve to be wealthy. We don't deserve to have great relationships. It's not my nature. That's not me. I hear people say this all the time. Well, that's just not me. Well, we can change that if we choose. I can't afford it. This is a huge one. Everybody has said this. And what we need to do is make a shift from I can't afford it to, no, okay, I'm going to do that. Where can I find the resources to do that? How can I afford it? No one will help me. It's never been done before. We have a bunch of kind of unique things upstairs. There's some arches and there's some places where drywall has to be bent. And when the drywall guy came, he said, "You're not supposed to be able to do that." Well, I had bent this drywall and it turned out just fine, but he said, "You can't do that." I didn't know. And sure, it had been done before, but I didn't know that you couldn't do it. So the point is that we often get stuck by what somebody said to us. You can't. It's never been done before. Often we don't think we're strong enough, or we're not smart enough. We don't know enough, or we're too old. People like Colonel Sanders, 67 years old when he started Kentucky Fried Chicken. Louise Hay, some of you know Louise Hay.
It's not old.
65 years old. But many people think that that's too old. They're ready to retire. They're ready to go out to the pasture. That's the time when you start something new, right, Barb? Or, I'm not old enough. I hear kids say that. And then the rules, the government won't let me do this. I'm too big, I'm too fat, I'm too small. We hear all of this. I don't have enough energy. I'm tired. I have a family history of it. This refers mostly to health issues. So people say, I have a family history of heart disease. That makes no difference in your own situation. We know something now called epigenetics. And what we think about can change our genetics. The chemistry of our body can change our genetics and turn a gene off, or it can turn it on. I'm too busy. Everybody's used this excuse. However, you can always find time to do the things that you really desire to do. And this is the big one, I'm afraid. Many, many people use that mind virus. I call them the terrible twos. To this, to that, to. All these mind viruses are based on fear. And they all come from old programs or past events. So they come from somebody telling us this, or something we experienced, and now we've got our guard up so it doesn't happen to us again. And those are the things that keep us stuck in our current situation. That's why you can have one part of your life be very successful and another part unsuccessful, because the one part may be contaminated by an old program and the other part isn't. So we'll help you sort some of that out and get rid of some of these mind viruses. So step one in this process is you got to become aware of your current emotional situation. You got to think about thinking. You got to think about how you feel, whether you operate on fear or you operate on faith. You got to become aware of some of your words. Many of us have words and phrases that we use all the time, automatically, that we learn from somebody else that are not accurate. I'm sick and tired. You hear this all the time. Bad, very bad phrase. It programs illness and fatigue. Lots of times people say that gives me pain in the neck or pain somewhere else. These programs, they don't really mean it, but yet when the body hears it, it will comply. So we're going to help you search for some of these old memories that need to be cleared. In the book, and what we're going to have you do next week is work on a timeline. Between now and then, I would like everybody to read this book if you haven't had it. When you leave tonight, we'll give you a copy of this. The first section is how you clear these old programs. And one of the tools that you use will be a timeline. Now on that timeline, you want to write as many things that you can recall that were traumatic. Physical traumas, maybe you fell and broke your arm, or maybe you had a really bad flu or appendicitis, and put these on that timeline. Or maybe there were emotional events. Maybe your parents were divorced, or something that happened to me. I was about 4 years old and my parents left me at church. We went to church twice a day on Sunday, and Sunday morning I'd gone with my cousin home for the afternoon to play with my cousin. So when they came to church Sunday night, I wasn't with them, and when they went home Sunday night after church, they left me. And so I'm running around this empty church, everybody's gone, and just crying my eyes out. And the janitor finds me, and of course he finds the phone and calls my folks. But this is a very traumatic event. Now, you look at it now, you think, I rotten little kid, but at that time, for me, it was very traumatic. And I've had to reprogram that because it was an abandonment issue. And it interfered with lots of parts of my life, feeling like I might be abandoned or left behind. So these are the kind of things that we'll have you look for. Now, you're also going to learn some tools for changing the past. Now, I hear all the time people say, you can't change the past. Well, the reality is that you really can't change those events. But also the reality is that our memory of those events is flawed. And what we remember about them is usually much different than what really happened. And usually much greater. Often we magnify those events tremendously. So what we're really going to do is give you some tools to change your memory of those events. And some of you have done this already. You write emotional release letters. And I'll explain this fully, and in the class next week we're actually going to write one of these letters and go through the process of eliminating the connection to the person who caused you to have that program. almost everybody needs to write a letter to their parents. It's a very difficult time releasing ourselves from the parents. Sometimes parents did a good job and they gave us a blessing, and in their teen years they cut us loose and said, you can do this yourself. But lots of times they hung on to us and never let us go or release us. Mike?
Humorous about almost what you perceive things to be. I thought I grew up real poor and we lived on the river. I'm in a class reunion, about 25th class reunion. Some fellow, postmaster's son, tells me, you know, it's pretty cool. I was always hanging out and got to fish all day long. Well, in retrospect, that's a lot better deal than what he had. And it took me a long time to shed that one because my perception was really screwed up. I'm going fishing.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. We're going to learn something called revision. This is a way to see something from the past in a different way. So you reframe it. Like Mike learned how to reframe it, but it took a lot of years before he was able to do that. We'll give you some tools that you can reframe an old event and see it in a totally new light. And once it's changed, then your brain has the ability to select whichever version it wants to, and it'll always select the one that's in your best interest. So as time goes on, these old programs begin to fade as the new ones develop. Now we'll introduce you to something called the mental enema. And actually I'll tell you tonight what that is, and some of you have read this in the book. But this is a technique I used early on, because I was loaded with these old programs. But what you do is you get real quiet, you either lie down or sit in a comfortable chair, someplace where you're not going to be disturbed for 10-15 minutes. And you just get very relaxed, and then you imagine taking a tube, sticking it in your ear, and you have a water bag there with a bunch of purifying water, and you stick that in your ear, and it runs out the bottom of your feet. And you flush all of that crap out of your system. And imagine the brown water just running down the drain. What this does is it doesn't specifically look at a program, but it generally begins to cleanse some of the stuff out of your system. And it may work on your physical body as well as your mental and emotional body. Lots of us are stuck and plugged up physically. So when you do this, you might get the idea, well, maybe I need to do a liver cleanse, maybe I need to do a colon cleanse, or an all-cell detox, or something to actually cleanse some of the physical parts of the body. Also, we'll touch on it a little bit, but we just read a book called The Magic of Tidying Up, or something like that. It's a book about how to when you're cleansing yourself emotionally, you also need to cleanse your physical space. So cleaning the closets, cleaning the basement, cleaning the garage, these places where we've got piles and piles of junk or clothing that we haven't worn in 10 years, they need to be removed. So this isn't just about cleaning up your mind, it's also cleaning up your physical space. So mental house cleaning, you'll learn how to take some of these words and phrases and begin to take those out of your vocabulary and get rid of some of those mind viruses. First you got to hear them. And you'll notice this week as you go through your life, you're going to start hearing them. Often you'll hear other people say them, and then sometimes you'll hear yourself say them. Now don't be a pest. If you hear somebody say sick and tired, don't jump all over them. Just observe. And then you learn some affirmations. Each of those mind viruses that I detailed a little while ago, I'll give you an affirmation to counteract that. So you look through the list, you see things that you find as a mind virus for yourself, and you'll have an affirmation to correct that. An affirmation is just a statement that you say to yourself frequently to counteract that program that you have in your head. And we'll also introduce you to some homeopathy and some essential oils and Bach flower remedies that help us to forgive, to let go of the past, to move forward into the future. Now, step 2, this will be the third weekend, so 2 weeks from tonight, is clarifying your goals. Now, goals can be general, they can be very specific, or they can be a feeling. And I'll just use an example. Maybe you decide you want to have a new car. Maybe that car for you is just transportation. You don't really care. All it needs is 4 wheels, windshield, and some windows, and it's going to be good, reliable transportation. Or maybe you want something very specific. So you have a particular model, particular color, needs a certain engine, very specific. Or maybe you just want something that's going to make you feel good. Maybe you want a car that's very reliable because you're always worried about breaking down on the highway in the dark. So you need a very reliable car. Or maybe you need a sports car that you can drive around and feel really jazzed up and you know, check yourself out of the windows as you go by, things like that. So we'll talk about goals and how you clarify those goals. And we'll look at goals in each of those categories because it isn't just about having a cool car or, you know, it's also about where you're going to go on vacation, what kind of job you really like, what you want your business to be doing if you own a business, how you can grow that business, and how you have really good relationships with your family. So I thought this was a really important quote. Your goals are the prophecy of what you will someday become. If you ever want some reading, David Cameron Gandhi wrote a book called A Happy Pocket Full of Money. Excellent book. It's also available in an audio book.
Could you say that again?
A Happy Pocket Full of Money.
I think we got some here.
Now, let's look at how one generates or manifests something in their life. Everything first starts with an idea. It's like coming to this class. You read about it, you saw about it, one of your friends talked about it, you had an idea. And this idea began to kind of incubate and finally developed some momentum. You have to feel good about it. So any idea, if it doesn't have a good feeling to it, it begins to diminish. But an idea that has a good feeling will begin to grow and develop momentum. So you have to have faith and certainty, and when it develops a certain critical mass, it is going to materialize or manifest no matter what you do. So once you've laid this egg and incubated it to a certain point, it is going to develop. The big thing is what happens in this interim between generating the idea and getting to the critical mass. Because you can stop these things at any time. In biology, if a hen lays an egg and it stays warm at a certain temperature, in 21 days there's going to be a little baby chick. That's the law of nature. Well, all of these things are just like the law of nature. Now, some of our ideas have an incubation of 1 day. Sometimes our ideas have an incubation of 8 years, like upstairs. So, the whole idea is that you understand that this is a process. And the more you do this, the more you can generate particular outcomes. And I'll tell you a funny story. Last year when we moved in, when we were upstairs and somebody would come to visit, we'd have to run downstairs and open the garage door for them to come in. I said to Barb one night, I really should get a garage door opener. We have it upstairs, and when somebody comes, we just pop the door open and let them in. The next day, a patient came by, and he hands me a garage door opener. Now, I was planning to go to Menards and buy one, but he handed me a garage door opener. Now, he's in that business, and just for whatever reason, he decided that he was going to give me a garage door opener. I generated the idea, and within a very short time, enough momentum, and he picked it up somehow, and that manifested just like that. So once you start doing this, the incubation period becomes shorter and shorter, and your ability to create becomes faster and faster.
Back in '85, I went to a class, it was supposed to career development, whatever, and they was talking about that new car thing, and they said that a lot of people were lining up with a brand new Mustang, and they listened to the commercial, and here they were, life was going to change, but they were in somebody else's idea of what they were doing. They were in this car, and they had no idea what they were going to do next. A lot of people had a new car, and they weren't really happy with it. Was the point of that whole story, because they weren't doing their idea, their dream, the way that
Right.
something popped in their head
Otherwise,
in
you
the
become a
commercial.
pawn in somebody else's dream.
There you go.
Barb had an interesting experience last year. This time, she made a statement that she'd like a different car. And a couple days later, she crashed her car and
Right.
ended up with a different
Yeah,
car.
Barb, she's done that a lot. Yeah, Barb, you've done that so many times. Oh my gosh, she's created new cars.
All right, step 3. We must think from the future as if we've already experienced what we desire. Now, lots of times when we set a goal, we think about it as out there in the future somewhere. But what we're going to teach you in the 3rd session is how to think about it as if you already have it. Because when you have it and you think about it as if you have it, with a feeling of gratitude, that creates a whole different experience in your brain and at the subconscious level of your mind. And that subconscious begins to work on how you're going to get this, because it is a certainty. It thinks you already have it. So this is a really important part of this creation process. You can clean the basement, but you still have to think about the future as if you already have it. And whenever you talk to a really successful person in one of these areas, that's what they're doing. If they want something, their desire becomes so strong, they're playing a mental movie in their mind as if they're already driving the car or if they're already living in that house. We've been living upstairs for 8 years, only 1 year physically, but mentally we've been up there for a long time. Now when you're doing this, you have to have a feeling of gratitude. And when you have a feeling of gratitude, in most cases, it already means that you have that thing. And you're happy and you're thankful that you have it, that you own it, or that it's part of your life. Well, when you carry this feeling of gratitude while you're creating a mental image of being there and doing that already, it adds additional power to that imagery. And it becomes a very powerful, attractive force. Some of you have heard of the law of attraction. Well, this is how you create that attractive force. If you think about that thing out there in the future, that means you're trying to go there. But what we're going to do is teach you how to draw that thing to you. So you stay here in your present, and you're just going to bring that, whatever it is, to you. And it's a whole different set of dynamics at the quantum physics level. And we'll just explain in detail how you really make that happen. So, people ask, well, will this work for me? Somebody said in their introductions, I hope this works for me. Well, we are the ones that make this happen. It will work for you if you use these steps. The only thing that will stop it is if you still have an old program from the past that's holding it back, or if you're not thinking correctly about the future. So all you have to do is be in the room, listen to and watch the program, and do the homework and go through the process. The things that we're going to do here in the class will be a part of what you're going to do later at home on your own. Because once you learn how to do this, you can apply it to anything in your life, any part of your life.
I have some friends in St. John's, and they weren't able to come tonight. If I talk to them and they
Yeah,
decide
they
they
can
can't
come, they
come,
can start.
okay.
So all you got to do is show up. You got to have a seat on the bus. I'll guide you, and you follow the formula. Shortcut to success. Many people think that success takes a lifetime, and for myself, it has taken a lifetime. I started this journey in my 20s, and I still can't instantly manifest everything I want. It's a lot better than it was when I was in my 20s. But what the point of this process is to shorten it so that you can learn how to do it more quickly. Now, there's 4 steps to change of any kind. We start with what we call unconscious incompetence. This is where you don't know that you don't know. So, you're doing something that's blocking your success, you don't even know what it is. Now, second step is learning what it is, so you have conscious incompetence. You're still not doing it, but you know why you're not doing it. Third is you begin to be competent, but you have to think about it. You have to do it consciously. And the fourth step is where it's automatic. Unconscious incompetence. You think about what you want, and it materializes without a whole lot of effort. So, how many people think this could work for you? Very good. So what does it cost? Well, it's actually priceless. That comes from a commercial. So each of the 3 sessions is $30. If you sign up for all 3, it's $25 each, $75. And what are you going to get? Well, you're going to get the sessions. You get a book, and I'll have a support CD for you next time that will help guide you through the process called revision. It's explained in the book, but some people say they find it a little difficult to follow my word instructions. So I'm going to put it on CD, and so you can take anything from the past that needs to be revised, and we'll guide you through that revision process. And if you want to come back, sometime we do this in the future, you can come for half price. So, all you got to do is get on the bus.
Where do we sign?
Yeah, Barb will sign you up when you leave. So the next session will be January 27th. It's going to start at 6:30. We're going to be here for 2 hours. It's going to start at 6:30, go approximately until 8:30. I like to start on time. I like to end on time. Weather isn't the greatest, so we don't want you out too late. Any questions?